All right. Welcome to another Jim's Informal Open Mic. I'm glad you could join me today to share some poetry, some conversation, and hopefully by the time we're done here, you'll feel better. So I'm going to start clockwise today. Mary, you're going to be reader 1, Lorraine 2, Sterling 3, and I will be 4. And if someone else joins, we'll add them to the lineup. And we'll take turns as always, read one poem each, and then go around again. So Mary, you're up.
Okay. This is something pretty new. And I'm kind of unpacking a lot of past experience. And I don't want it to be therapy. I want it to be art. And I have questions about that. Okay, the name of it is Trespass. My father said he'd been under artillery fire, quieter than my mother in the kitchen. She was a noisy cook, the clang of pots and pans crashing together like the bass in an orchestra, speaking her moods in ways she couldn't be forced to hide them. 2 women in the house, an uneasy treaty, each in their own sphere. Mama cooked and cleaned, rocked babies, did the laundry, warned us of Dad's inevitable wrath, and tried to fend it off. No apologies. Grandma didn't meddle in the kitchen, did no laundry, scrubbed no floors, but was the only one who sewed on her old iron treadle machine, the one who consoled us with indulgences better than the ones that could forgive sins. She didn't make much noise anywhere, but everyone knew in our house she was the law. Mama's kitchen, like Grandma's bed, was a refuge from good whippings by belt and fist, or nightmares taking you helplessly asleep. You had to know if you could run and hide what the best choices were and what were useless without cover or protection. Just once I was caught there by surprise. In the kitchen I thought empty and safe, my tormentor somehow slipping back past all the baffles set by those women to pin me down in my own dark corner with his heart full of poison, deaf to my childish begging, too big and too far away in the mechanics of his need to even see how cruel a catastrophe he was. Thank you.
Wow.
That paints a really, really painful picture. So you've done well with the poem.
Thank you.
Lorraine?
Well, mine's going to be totally different than that thing. We just had a full moon, and you all call it the rose moon. And people from the northern hemisphere who live at the equator or south still use the names for the full moons from their part of the world. And in January, I got to thinking about that again. So this is called Full Moon in January. The Amazon River's cracked silt glitters in the bright light of the wolf moon. A breeze cools the sweltering heat in these Andes. Glaciers evaporating, peaks now bare stone. On the wildfire-charred Pantanal, a maned wolf gazes upon that moon and thinks, that is not me, and I am not a wolf. South America has no wolves. Wolf moon, a name of those northern humans. Maned wolf, a name of those northern humans who scrape the minerals, who strip the forests, who poison our rivers for their insatiable quest for what? And Awara Wasu turns away his long, thin legs sliced by the sharp stubble of the seared Pantanal wetlands, and disappears into the scant shadows thrown by the bright light of this full moon.
I like that.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Sterling.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to do a couple tonight that'll be appearing in Verse Virtue in a few days. The first one's called Evening Oxidation. Reddish brown. Light pierces midnight. Ginnels shadows on graffiti-adorned walls, and weathered cedar fences and rusty gate hinges that creak and groan as gales shoot through knotholes, pushing frail structures that bend like wind gusts, filling canvas sails, striving to remain upright amid storm spasms. Hanging around cafes, flexing feline hips like streetwalkers, alley cats seek live mice, microbats, and greasy spoon dinner scraps, while garbage cans tip over and metal lids roll down back streets as slick as hubcaps, as rust-colored hues give way to gray shadows, squirrels scampering over irregular fence slat tightropes, walking blindly under a crescent moon.
Cool.
That was fun. What does Ginnel mean?
Ghetto is just a beam of light. I understand. I believe. Uh,
Oh,
Oh,
I don't remember. If
Ginnel is a word in various Scottish and Northern English dialects describing a fenced or walled alley between
okay.
residential buildings.
This scares me once in a while when all of a sudden I see a word and I blank out on it. You know, I am 70. But it's like, what the fuck?
you're a baby.
It was
You're just a
very clear to me
baby.
when I wrote it.
It's an alleyway. Fun.
Perfect for the cat.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to read a poem called Hungry. Has nothing to do with hunger, at least not physical. One reading was not enough, nor a second, nor a third. Not until the fourth time did I realize the desperate thing you had done to me. Summer is so full of memories, made more with the rolling years, some to savor, some to sorrow. Here, in a mid-August evening, you wrapped up your heart, tender, intense, broken, and handed it to me without explanation or excuse. Your descriptions of July as vivid and penetrating as a dream that wakes me trembling. The passion in your poem brought fierce jealousies that I was not the focus of your writing, though I don't even know who you are. In the fourth reading, I understood why one was not enough. As the fire in your heart touched the paper walls of my hunger, burned away all pretense, I could hear the voice of my loneliness begging, please, can we find someone to love us just like that?
Hmm.
And sometimes I read poetry that just hits me in the feels. So
Knock your socks off.
at least one of them. All right, we're back around to you, Mary.
Okay. This one's sort of about worries, the worries that we were talking about before we started. Afterward, will kindness fade, be outlawed, and only anger be permitted on the public stage? Will we have to keep our dreams close, under wraps, only a whisper behind closed doors, each word risking retribution from the masters of a nightmare world? How much blood will they spill against threats they have invented to comfort spite? Will the small blue flower still open in the weedy grass? Will every infant still invite caress? Will we lose the way to tenderness, the sweet curve of the baby's head, cradled against our cheek, the fragrance of innocence unmistakable, a blessing better than any promise of spite fulfilled, anger burning the world to ash, inevitable sacrifice to resentment and revenge? I must believe, even in extremity, the moon will rise, luminous and unchanged, over oceans insulted and full of our discarded garbage. The tide's pulse still beating, life still inventing ways around even the worst damages, not for or against us, but beyond the best and worst of us. Blessings more than we ever could imagine.
Well, there were some quotable, memorable lines in there. Would you be so kind as to email me a copy of that?
Yes, I will.
I would love to have that. Lorraine, are you up for a second poem? If the answer is yes, you'll have to unmute.
Okay, sure. Let's see. Things are a little bit slow. Sorry about that. Gosh bless it. Okay. This is called When We Grew Up. Walking down the aisles aimlessly, glancing at the jacks, plastic soldiers, cap guns, remembering when I was young, boys had their toys and girls had theirs. I picked up a rubber ball, rainbow on white, bounced it on the concrete floor, caught it with senseless fingers. Bounce, catch, bounce, catch, flex the wrist, sing a song. When we grew up, we were at war. When we grew up, we were at war. My hand went limp, dropped the rubber ball into its bin. The rainbow dimmed. My senseless fingers rubbing tired eyes. When we grew up, we were at war. When we grew up, we were at war. That senseless war of our childhood ended as our youth ended. The embers of senseless wars smoldering as our youth smolders. When we were grown up, we were at war. When we were grown up, we were at war.
That was fascinating.
Yeah.
And thank you for adding the singing. That was delightful.
Thank you.
Okay. See, I guess that's me.
It is.
Okay, I have one other that'll be published in this month. Oh, okay. Oh, it did one of those weird things. When it takes things off screen and then I always can't seem to get back to it. So I'm not going to do that poem. I'm gonna have see. I have screen share and I have absolutely nothing to show for it. I'll read a different poem that I've been working on. I have to get it off right after this meeting. Had to write a dramatic monologue for Poets Online. This one's called New York Overlook Untethered. Look there! Look there! The dove on my window habitually settles come twilight and begins to peck the pane until I lift the sliding sachet, toss birdseed on the ledge, and watch it pluck individual grains from bricktops to mortar grooves. See, see how it floats from my private terrace to the public park below, where the peace lover mingles with pigeons, pushes past pedestrian feet. Ah, I too once exercised such freedom, moving among strangers and familiars indiscriminately, until the paparazzi forced me out of nightclubs and then into the spotlight, dusk till dawn, dawn till dusk. Just imagine, yes, just imagine yourself lurking in subway shadows, waiting for blind moments to serve up opportunities for you to take flight unobserved by others who straggle up steps and imprint themselves on their immediate environment. Lonely, hungry, hapless, out of tune with present day melodies, courting chaos as long as your feathered ego remains intact and you can pick up or choose to blend into a human flock or stand in solitary defiance, remotely counting backwards as consciousness returns to a mind overwhelmed by thought. Am I right? Am I fair? Am I making sense? Turn towards my bathroom. Just imagine how my fishbowl once teemed with life before I placed it on the toilet tank. A timeless, fond memorial to fish I flushed down the sewer to swim in eternity's aquarium bubbling below. Wait a minute. No, no, no. Come, let's grab a Dakota apartment latte, then visit strawberry fields in Central Park.
Wow. That's quite the journey.
My sister-in-law, Kathy, sent pictures. She's house sitting for her daughter in New York, and of a pigeon on a ledge. And that's what inspired the poem.
Well, thank you. I'm going to read a really short poem called Remember. And like so many poems I wrote in that era, amazingly, it's a love poem. It's called Remember. When time has slipped into space and space has spun away, leaving nothing in its wake, there will still be this, your memory held safely wherever I am. Because one reality of life is that having loved you, I will remember.
Oh, that's really nice.
Thank you. And with that, you are on stage again, Mary.
Okay. Okay, this is one from my book. It's called Burn. When the gate drops, when the storm takes you, so high and far, all your ordinary days shrink to insignificance while the stars spin out of their orbits and you break free of gravity, rising like a new sun, spinning in the glory of your own inexhaustible fires, your heat expanding until your furthest atoms brush up against the rim of the universe where time and matter took their first steps out of the great nothing. And you can only hold on to your wild exaltation, even though this isn't your first time. And like the bull rider, you know the end will find you thrown to the dust, torn flesh and broken bones, hard payment for that brief ecstasy.
Here you go. Thank you. Lorraine, if you'd like to read a third poem, it's time.
Okay, sure. And I think this will be my last one. Let's see. This is from one of my chapbooks called Notes in the Patagonia, is the name of the chapbook. This poem is called These Patagonian Plains. Once these Patagonian plains were a different world, Pangea just parting, covered by thick forests of Araucaria ancestors, roamed by great beasts. The Andes not yet exploding upon the western horizon, rending the earth, stopping the sea from washing upon these sere shores, blocking humid breezes, rustling the primitive conifers. Winds now great from the south, sweeping across this prairie, hilled with dead volcanoes, covered with stiff grasses and scrub brush. Those forests died off, suffocated by acrid air and ash, their petrified trunks scattering this desert, pieces stolen to decorate the homes and gardens of pale colonizers that swept this land clear of the Ionic ink. These lonely steps, today forested by derricks slowly whirling and bobbing steadily in the gusts, pumping from the earthly depths the blackened blood of those ancient trees.
I like that.
Yeah.
Petrified forest seems to show up all over the world. And for me, living in the US Southwest, the only one I knew about growing up was in Arizona, where you could get arrested and fined severely for trying to smuggle pieces of petrified wood out of the park. Because as you can imagine, people will take anything they can put in a vehicle and get away with. And it doesn't take long to strip a place, to deforest even a petrified forest.
Yeah.
And then I found here in California, there are at least 2 petrified forest remnants relatively close to me. So that was kind of fun.
Lorraine, where are you coming from?
Washington.
No, Lorraine.
Oh,
Where is she coming from? South
America.
America,
Yeah.
but more particularly like Brazil,
Just floating around.
floating around. Okay. Well, that's intriguing.
I mean, my blog is called Latin America Wanderer. So that gives you an idea. Thank you very much for your voices.
Thank you for coming.
well, I'm going to try one more time for, yeah, it showed up this time. Rosa A. Mudavara. And that was the original name for the Taj Mahal. Angie's face lit night skies like dazzling galaxies. Stars shimmering against a field of dark bluish green, reflecting Taj Mahal opulence and elegant grandeur on her ivory face, smooth as polished marble, soft as a summer breeze brushing cheeks that triggered blush and accented natural beauty. She transformed daytime doldrum images to awesome sights of evening splendor, as explosive as firework exhibitions, defibrillating the Milky Way's heartbeat. Angie's voice whispered sultry velvet echoes down common spines that looked to her like the eighth natural world wonder and monumental threshold of paradise, conduit to spirituality, testament to love.
Have you ever been to India?
No, I haven't. I'd like to.
Same here.
If I were 50 years younger, I'd like to do it, and I'd like to travel it on the tops of trains like you see in the movie.
Yeah. Hang on
You know,
tight.
in New Delhi, I read that it was 126 degrees.
Mm.
Oh, I had seen that too. I was talking earlier with Sterling about things warming up where I am. It's still just in the 80s here, but I'd seen recently that there are places in India where the heat is so intense that it is no longer compatible with human life.
That's what I wondered. How can people live
They
at
can't,
100?
they can't. Their
You
their
can't.
thermoregulation gives up. You die of heat stroke and heat exhaustion. So I'm going to jump from that into a poem I wrote a lot of years ago. It looks like it was in November of 1999, maybe. Anyway, it was in response to a poet who had posted or written something that was just horribly vulgar, um, with no sensitivity to it. And this was my response, my reaction, and I called it raw. Within each urgent line of verse, wrapped in flaming metaphors, he took what he called love and stripped it naked, pushed it center stage for public viewing, raped and raw. Draping First Amendment flags on venomous vulgarity, he laughed, mocked, shouted his lover's secrets to a voyeurist crowd, boastful, bastardly bragging, past all decency or discretion because he said, I can. And after all, isn't this what everyone lives for, dreams of, talks of before and after the fact? And doesn't every poet wannabe write his own proclamation of manhood this way? I put it down unfinished, surprised at the gap between his world and mine, thinking he must not know love at all. No tender private moments to build walls around, a hidden garden where love blossoms unexpectedly to desire, and extra eyes will never know the details, raw or refined, of passion's expression, quiet secrets kept for only two.
I like that.
That was, I have no idea what the poem was. I just remember that it disgusted me. It was just incredible. And I recognize I grew up in a really sheltered environment. There was no profanity, no drinking, no smoking, no drugs in my home, and generally none among my friends and peers. So when I got away from that out to college and then to work and other things and found out that other people had very different lives than I did, I was often shocked. But being a poet, you write about it. So there we are.
And I think your poem, I mean, it's a kind of boasting that's very self-indulgent.
It is.
That the what you were objecting to, it's just leaves me cold.
If it had been written recently, I would say think Trump.
Well, I was thinking of that because it's almost a direct quote. When you're sorry, you can do anything. You can
Yeah.
get away with it. Isn't that what everybody wants? Well, no, it's not.
No, there are plenty of us who are not impressed by it. So
Right.
it was
Well, the other thing is, it's not always getting away with it, but they can squash it. Let's not forget that before he was president, he did lose cases, and he had to pay $25 million for his ruse, that whole Trump University scam.
Yeah.
But it escaped public publicity. It escaped scrutiny, and it shouldn't have. It, I mean, being an educator, maybe I was a little bit touchy about it, but it was scams like him and other private colleges that gave higher education a bad name.
Yeah,
And
there
first
have
things
been plenty of
Republicans
those.
did is they got rid of critical thinking. That used to be a requirement. You had to have a critical thinking course to get your 4-year college degree. And that's one of the first things the Republicans managed to, Betsy DeWa or whatever, strip from the educational code because it was
Well,
prejudicial.
you know that regardless of the country or the time or the person, if you can keep people poor and uneducated, you can control them.
Yeah.
That's been not a recent phenomenon. That's
No.
been a historical thing. And it's been exploited in America quite thoroughly. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.